Dear Pi pioneers, and the millions of friends in front of the screen who harbor the dream of owning a home. Hello everyone. Today, I glanced at the calendar. It is already January of 2026. The new year has just begun. On the Stanford campus, the air is cold and fresh, and the sunlight spills through the oak leaves, creating a dappled pattern. In this moment full of hope, I did not focus on those grand technical parameters, but instead turned my gaze to a most simple and heart-piercing corner of the community forum. Late last night, while browsing the Voice of Pioneers section, a short question made my finger hover over the screen, unable to scroll past for a long time. This question was very short. Only a few dozen words. Dr. Fan, I have 1,000 Pi in my hand. In the future, can I rely on it to buy a house in the big city? Through this line of text, I seem to see the eager, anxious, and even slightly pleading eyes on the other side of the screen. I know this is not a simple financial question. Behind this lies an ordinary person's desire for class ascension, a family's expectation for a place to settle down, and the collective psychological projection of tens of millions of pioneers over these 8 years. If it were another project team, they might fob you off with slogans like surge incoming or one coin, one villa to give you a shot of adrenaline. But I cannot. As a scholar, as a co-founder of Pi Network, I have the responsibility to break those illusory bubbles and answer this question about the distance between 1,000 Pi and one house with the most honest and profound logic. Today, I want to invite everyone into my study. We are going to have a long heart-to-heart talk. First, let us honestly face the present moment of January 2026. Looking back at the past 2025, that was the first year of our open mainnet. We experienced a price roller coaster, the initial stage of the ecosystem, and the departure and persistence of countless people. If we calculate based on the fluctuating price on exchanges at this very moment, although much more stable than when the mainnet first opened last year, and the ecosystem is much more prosperous, the current market value of your 1,000 Pi might only be enough to buy a dilapidated second-hand car or pay a very small part of the down payment for that house. This amount of money still has a significant gap from buying a house in full in a big city. Hearing this, you might feel disappointed, even angry. Dr. Fan, is this the result of your 7 years of effort? Is this the future you promised? Please do not rush to close the page, because price and value are two completely different concepts. The current market price, although rising steadily, is still affected by the macroeconomy, regulatory environment, and the turnover of early speculators. It reflects the current consensus, not future potential. At this stage, if you ask me, can I buy a house? My answer is not yet. If you sell now, you might only be able to improve your current life slightly. But if you ask me, can I in the future? My answer is, this depends on how we define future and whether you are qualified to hold the ticket to the future. To answer your question, we need to lengthen our perspective and pull it back to the starting point of cryptocurrency history. In 2010, a programmer named Laszlo used 10,000 bitcoins to barely exchange for 2 pizzas. At that moment, if you asked him, I have 1,000 bitcoins, can I buy a house? People around would laugh at you as a lunatic, because 1,000 bitcoins at that time couldn't even buy a slice of pizza. However, only 10 years passed. When Bitcoin rose to $60,000, $100,000, those 1,000 bitcoins from back then became $100 million. It could not only buy a house in a big city, it could buy a building or even an estate. Dear Pioneer, the situation of the 1,000 Pi in your hand now is just like those 1,000 bitcoins in 2010. It looks insignificant. It looks like it can't even pay the rent. However, Bitcoin took 10 years to walk the path because Pi Network stands on the shoulders of giants and possesses a real user base of tens of millions. We might only need 5 years or even shorter. I want to tell you, do not use today's price to measure tomorrow's dream. Today, 1,000 Pi cannot buy a house because although Pi has opened the mainnet for nearly a year, relative to the global economic volume it aims to carry, it is still in its adolescence. An adolescent cannot carry a heavy burden of 1,000 pounds, but you cannot conclude from this that he will not become a strongman when he grows up. Many people think 1,000 Pi is too little. Everyone has mined for 8 years. Surely, the average is tens of thousands. This is a huge misunderstanding. As someone with access to backend data, I can responsibly tell you a truth after completing KYC, deducting unverified computing power, executing the lifecycle release mechanism, and going through the large-scale washout of 2025. The Pi that can truly circulate in mainnet wallets is much scarcer than everyone imagines. In our network, a pioneer possessing 1,000 migrated, circulating base coins has actually defeated 90% of global users. You are in the upper middle layer of the pyramid, not the bottom. Why? Because too many people fell behind during the long 8 years. Some forgot their passphrases. Some gave up because they couldn't pass KYC. Some uninstalled the app because they thought it was slow, and more because of early short-sightedness. Sold their accounts to the black market for a few cents during the initial open mainnet period last year, or at the end of 2025. So, the 1,000 clean, mainnet Pi in your hand are diamond screened by time, with the continuation of the halving mechanism and the exponential increase in mining difficulty. It may take latecomers 10 years or even longer to obtain 1,000 Pi through mining. Scarcity creates value. When 8 billion people globally begin to scramble for these limited chips, your voice as a holder of these 1,000 Pi will be infinitely amplified. At that time, these 1,000 Pi will be your land deed in this digital city-state. Back to the specific vision of buying a house. In your subconscious, you think the path is sell Pi for fiat currency, such as US dollars or RMB, and then use fiat currency to buy a house. This is typical old world thinking. If it is this path, then Pi must rise to $1,000 apiece for you to buy a house in full. Although we also look forward to that day, this requires a massive volume of funds. However, Pi Network's vision is to establish a new world financial order. We are building a brand new path. Use Pi to pay for the house directly, or use Pi as asset collateral. Please imagine the scenario in 2030. With the popularization of KYB corporate verification and the implementation of EU MiCA compliance, real estate developers begin to accept Pi payments. You do not need to exchange Pi for depreciating fiat currency. You directly transfer 1,000 Pi to the developer's account or mortgage it in a decentralized bank, like Gargara, to obtain a low-interest loan to buy a house. Why would developers be willing to accept it? Because at that time, fiat currency might become as thin as paper due to inflation, while Pi, due to its deflationary attributes and global consensus, has become an asset harder than gold. At that time, perhaps you won't need 1,000 Pi. Maybe just 500 Pi will be enough to exchange for an apartment in the city center. Does this sound like a fantasy? But 10 years ago, if someone said Bitcoin could buy a Tesla, no one believed it either. Our ecosystem app StarMax is already landing commercial payments, from coffee to houses. The only difference is a process of consensus accumulation. As a scholar studying social inequality, I know deeply how hard it is to buy a house in a big city. For an ordinary person with no background and no original accumulation, buying a house by saving wages is almost an impossible task. The speed of rising house prices will always be faster than the speed of your wage growth. This is the exploitation of ordinary people by the old financial system. They dilute your savings with inflation and lock your future with high mortgages. Pi Network is a ladder we give to ordinary people. But this ladder is not for you to climb up and pick fruits. It is for you to climb out of the deep well. The 1,000 Pi in your hand is the only original stock you obtained at zero cost in this cruel financial world. This is the only opportunity for you to stand on the same starting line as Wall Street elites. If you sell these 1,000 Pi now because of anxiety, exchanging them for a few $100s to buy a piece of clothing or eat a meal, then you are personally chopping this ladder into firewood. You not only can't afford a house, you even lose the only possibility of buying a house in the future. You have to ask yourself, besides Pi, what other opportunities do I have to make my assets flip 100 times, 1,000 times? If not, then please hold on to this life-saving straw tightly, even if it looks very thin now. It is your only hope. Dear friend, regarding your dream of wanting to buy a house, as Chengdiao fan, at this starting point of 2026, I have 3 sincere suggestions. First, do not be a miser, be a capitalist. Do not just stare at these 1,000 Pi without moving. Participate in the ecosystem. Go to StakeDM to build through staking. Go to games like Run for Pi to win more Pi through skills. Run a node, even a light node, to get node rewards. Let your 1,000 Pi become 1,100, 1,500. Compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Second, forget price. Focus on purchasing power. Do not stare at the exchange every day to see if it is 50 cents or 60 cents today. That will make you mentally collapse. What you need to focus on is, what can one pie buy today? Last year, it could only buy a bottle of water. This year, it can buy a piece of clothing. Next year, it can buy a computer. As long as its purchasing power is improving, your dream of buying a house is getting closer. Third, give time a little time. A house in a big city condenses reinforced concrete, land value, and human labor. It is huge wealth in itself. You want to use 8 years of this low-cost clicking to exchange for the accumulation of several generations of others. This itself requires immense time leverage. Bitcoin took 15 years. Please give Pi at least 5 to 10 years. Treat these 1,000 Pi as a gift to the future. Lock them in a cold wallet. Go work hard and live the present life well. Finally, I want to say to you, a house is important. It can shelter you from wind and rain, but more important than a house is your position in this digital age. If 10 years later, Pi truly becomes a global universal currency, and you hold 1,000 Pi in your hand, at that time, you might not only be able to afford a house, you will have the freedom to choose which city to live in and what work to do. That is what Pi truly wants to bring you. Not a shell of reinforced concrete, but the freedom of the soul. So, to answer your question, I have 1,000 Pi. Can I buy a house in a big city? My true view is, if today in January 2026, no. If in the future, as long as you hold it, as long as the ecosystem construction is good, not only can you, but it might be more than just one. This is a bet about belief. Nicholas and I have already staked our youth and reputation on this project. We have really worked for 7 years, and many of you have also accompanied us for 7 years. Are you still willing to bet on this hand with me? Continue to accompany us. If you are willing, please wipe away the sweat of anxiety. Hold the Pi in your hands tightly, and we will wait for the flowers to bloom together. Thank you, everyone.